It's fitting that the latest Dark Souls 3 expansion takes place at the end of the world. It is, after all, the final piece of content for From Software's epic action RPG series. With the future of the franchise as a whole still in question, the Ringed City could very well represent the last piece of Souls-related content that fans will get to play for some time. Complicating matters is the fact that the last Dark Souls 3 expansion, Ashes of Ariandel, wasn't all that well received by fans. It's not as if the last DLC was terrible, but it was a bite-sized piece of content that didn't do much to justify its existence. Now, with the possible end of the entire Souls franchise looming, there are questions as to whether or not From Software will retire the series on a high note. Is the Ringed City the send-off that Dark Souls 3 deserves, or are fans going to be left wanting a second time?
From time to time, voices brim from the depths of the cavity even now. Mutterings of the very demon that Prince Lorien spoke of, I'm sure.
When it comes to story, the Ringed City doesn't change the status quo. This is Dark Souls, and players will have to do some digging if they want to find any sort of story outside of the immediate narrative. Anyone expecting some sort of grand finale or climactic cutscene may be left wanting. Much like Ashes of Ariandel, the Ringed City just sort of ends. The anticlimax might not be what players were hoping for, but the rest of the package is so good that the lack of a more traditional, concrete conclusion isn't really a huge issue. Much like the story, the game's presentation hasn't changed much either. The character models, animations, effects, and environments might be new, but they don't change anything about the engine powering Dark Souls 3. This means that the Ringed City looks fantastic, with plenty of gorgeous vistas and hulking monstrosities waiting around every corner. Sadly, this also means that the same technical problems that have dogged Dark Souls 3 since launch are still present. To be fair, some of these issues are smoothed out as players make their way through the DLC, but it's a shame that the console experience is still so far behind the PC version. If there's one thing that does stand out about the presentation, it's the music. As one might expect, it has the same feel as the rest of Dark Souls 3, but the new tracks are arguably better than those found in the main game. It's impossible to do them justice simply by talking about them, but rest assured, the new tracks are downright superb. Combat is exactly what you'd expect. In terms of mechanics, nothing's really changed. The new weaponry tends to focus more on unique skills, and a few spells can be found hidden away throughout the environments, but the Ringed City can be conquered with the same skill set that players have grown accustomed to over the past year. The biggest changes to combat come in the form of new enemies and bosses. Aside from a few reskinned foes, almost every enemy combatant in the Ringed City is brand new. What's even better is that they present new, interesting additions to the established gameplay. There's still a lot of hacking and slashing, but there are plenty of clever new mechanics that'll catch even longtime fans by surprise. Bosses, on the other hand, almost feel like a throwback to earlier games in the series. One of the 4 new fights is a bit of a misfire thanks to the Ringed City's inconsistent netcode, but the others are amazing. Blending the feel of classic Souls with the faster, more aggressive style of Dark Souls 3 might sound like a step backwards, but that couldn't be farther from the truth. The final boss is almost worth the price of admission on its own, and the optional battles will put even the most well-trained Souls players through their paces. Only time will tell if these new foes hold up against classics like the Looking Glass Knight or Artorias of the Abyss, but even so, these are easily some of the best boss fights in all of Dark Souls 3. But the real standout is the level design. Despite a desolate, desaturated look, the new environments are absolutely gorgeous. And more importantly, there's a hugely increased focus on variety. The linear, tightly focused zones are joined by larger, more open areas, and the expansion uses environmental puzzles and traversal more than anything else in the series thus far. It all works extremely well. More often than not, half the battle is figuring out where to go and how to get there in one piece, and it does a lot to keep the DLC from feeling like one extended slog. With that said, it's not perfect. 2 zones in particular are long, grueling grinds through some of the toughest enemies in the expansion, and even high-level characters will likely have some trouble getting through. There's a difference between a challenging level of difficulty and an unrelenting nightmare. But, in the grand scheme of things, these spots are just a tiny piece of the whole package. The rest of the Ringed City's level design is fantastic, with a sense of diversity that simply didn't exist in the core Dark Souls 3 experience. Ask any Souls fan what they thought of Ashes of Ariandel, and chances are they'll say that From Software played it too safe. A single new environment and a few enemy types felt more like padding than a meaningful expansion. It wasn't bad, it just didn't feel like a necessary addition to the core game. Thankfully, the Ringed City is the complete opposite. The developers were willing to change up the combat, pacing, and level design to create something that felt genuinely new without ditching the series' established playstyle. The expansion's occasional flaws and lingering technical troubles are annoying at times, but even at their worst, these issues are minor. Few games are as meticulously well designed as Dark Souls, and the Ringed City is proof of that. The level design is some of the best in series history, while combat feels like the perfect blend of classic Dark Souls and the faster pace of more recent titles. Simply put, the Ringed City is some of the best content in the entire franchise, and a near perfect example of how to create meaningful downloadable content. If this really is the last that fans will see of the storied series, From Software has definitely said goodbye to Dark Souls in the best way possible. Thank you so much to Bandai Namco for making this video possible by sending us a nice little review copy, and thank you guys for watching the video. If you want to see more of our stuff, definitely make sure to check out the channel, and if you want to know when videos are uploaded as soon as they are uploaded, make sure to subscribe. And hey, if you want to follow us on social media, links are in the description. See you next time!